Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO and founder of SaaStock. Delighted to be joined today by another Alex, but Alex Mifsud, who is also actually sharing a Maltese surname, but he's the co-founder and CEO of Weavr. So welcome, Alex, to the podcast.
Good, great to be here.
Thanks for joining. We are in the week before, or in the run-up to Christmas, so neither of us are wearing a Christmas jumper. But can I ask, are you feeling festive? How is it in Weavr HQ and for you personally at the moment?
Well, we're squeezing as much as we can out of 2023. So no, the festivities have definitely not started. We're definitely full on here.
Okay, all right, yeah, it's similar at SaaStock HQ. But like I said, it's a bit of a skeleton crew. Half the company has already, broken for their holidays, and the other half is sort of grinding hard to get those, last bits of revenue and last deals in for the year. But I will be wrapping up this week and having a 2-week break. So looking forward to that. Not doing anything exciting apart from relaxing, hanging with the family, maybe eating a little bit too much. But I'm going to try stay on top of the fitness this year. Often, it's okay, to put on a few pounds during Christmas. But if I keep the exercise going, hopefully I don't come into January with too much to lose in terms of weights and in the new year. But
it's about recharging those batteries, isn't it? Really getting ready to go for the next year.
Exactly, and I think I'm sure everybody. I'm not alone in that. And as a founder and as a CEO, we really do need to take care of ourselves and recharge our batteries from time to time. Often don't do it enough in terms of I'll take a break and I'll work for 6 months then, and by the end of the 6 months I'm kind of like pretty much burnt out, and then take another break and recharge and kind of go again. But I need to learn to take those more regular kind of shorter breaks to kind of help with that. I do a lot of other stuff to help with physical, mental kind of performance, in terms of, trying to optimize sleep, going to the gym, food, that sort of stuff. But in terms of actual breaks and time away, I could definitely do better. How about yourself?
No, it's the same. First of all, you don't get to control the amount of stuff, right, that you have to get right for things to keep going in the right direction. At the same time, you have to survive through it. So I think it's a mix of having the right habits to stay healthy, because that will drag you down. If your health gives way, that drags you down. But it's also a mind game, actually, most of the time. And if I think everyone's a little bit different, but if you develop sort of coping strategies for how you deal with stress, not letting it build up, being able to sort of celebrate the moment, see things in perspective, give yourself that sort of little mind break to be thinking about other things, then I think it's a marathon. For most businesses, it's a marathon, and surviving all the way through it is very much keeping body and mind together.
So, Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Alex Mifsud?
Yeah, my sort of career had 2 parts to it. One was very much an academic career where I was, I did engineering to start with, electrical engineering, mostly around developing computer architectures. And then I moved sort of very slightly sideways into computer science, did my PhD, did my research, and really enjoyed it. I mean, it's, I think the idea of spending your time on one subject, really getting deep into it, really understanding in that perhaps narrow area everything there is to know about it, and having a group of people around the world who are in a way in on that particular area and having that interaction, that's amazingly satisfying. But it's also a little bit artificial. So you also have this nagging feeling, there's a world outside that you're not quite interacting in, you're not quite making the most of. And for me, the trigger happened in, I had the opportunity to really think about what to do outside the world of academia and to start organizing stuff in the early days of the internet. For me, that was setting up the Malta Internet Foundation, and really setting up the .mt top-level domain, building that internet infrastructure early on, and really getting to see the huge impact that this then new thing called the internet was having on everyone's lives. And that then got me started thinking about, how do I take this excitement of something which is very broadly relevant around the world, rather than perhaps the more narrow area of my research? How do I make more of that? And that really got me started into looking at and being involved in and ultimately building businesses of my own. So that's been my early journey.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I didn't know. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? In terms of, I guess, kind of setting up the .mt, sort of Malta internet infrastructure as such. And I know that you're a serial entrepreneur, and just a couple of questions there. So, from moving from PhD to becoming an entrepreneur, was that like was that an easy step, a logical step? I mean, it's never easy being an entrepreneur, but how was that kind of segue?
Yeah, look, the first experience was I think a massive failure. This was end of the .com boom. Managed to get involved in a business that raised a lot of money, in the 30s of billions of dollars. I fell out with the CEO. It didn't end well for me, and basically, I realized this wasn't quite the world of academia that I was used to. It's a completely different dynamic at play. And then, I basically, you start from ground zero, right, when that happens. I did about a year in consulting. I actually moved over to Cambridge in the UK. I did a year of consulting, learned a lot from that year, and then just got the bite again to have another go. This time with me founding the business. That was my first business. And a lot of things came together because I took a bunch of the research I was doing before, when I was in academia, and I really wanted to try and find real world problems to solve. And I won't bore you with the details, but I stumbled on this concept, which is a virtual prepaid card. So this is a prepaid card without plastic, just a 16-digit number, the expiry date and the CVV. So no plastic, no bank account behind it, no credit line behind it, and that's why it's a prepaid card. And I realized this simple thing could work anywhere across the internet, at any merchant that was accepting, Visa and MasterCard products, and actually could be turned into a real sort of utility for online payments. And that was my first business, a business called Entropay, where I learned a lot about how to make business work. That business ultimately wasn't super successful. It was profitable, but it gave rise to my second business, which a business called Ixaris, where if you you do it the second time round and you distill all the things that didn't work, you're very much more commercially aware of the value of the not just of the product you're building, but of the company that you're building as well. And the second time round, it worked much better. It scaled much more, and that business was sold just over 2.5 years ago, and and now is processing, from my understanding, sort of tens of billions of dollars a year in commercial payments on this concept of virtual card.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, often, well, look, most businesses, most startups fail, unfortunately, and there are a number of reasons because of this. Often second-time entrepreneurs and second-time founders, I guess, is the same thing. They've learned a lot from the missteps and sometimes, obviously, some of the successes as well, and that does stand you in good stead for that second-time round. And as you said, you had an exit then, the second time round. What can you paint a bit of a picture, like what did that outcome sort of look like, or how big the company was, what was it doing, and then I guess kind of after that, why did you decide to then start again?
Yes, it was a bit of a relay race, actually. What happened was in the second business, a business called Ixaris, we were applying this concept of virtual card across a whole range of industries. Insurance for claims payouts, for paying suppliers who are making good on claims, for payroll, really delivering efficient digital-first payroll in several countries around the world. In the travel industry for all travel agents to be able to pay airlines and hotels. So there's a range of sort of applications there. And one of the sort of things we realized is when you're building these applications for very demanding customers, sometimes multinationals, well-known brands, they are often very specific and demanding in terms of how the experience has to be. And we realized we're kind of reinventing the wheel every time we did one of these deals. So I wanted to try and find a way of building like an operating system that would take 80% of the lift to be just out of the box, because it was tooled up to help you do it in a way efficiently every time you encounter a situation, having more of a tool-based approach. So we did that, and we were very lucky to get a grant from the EU Horizon program, which is an 80 billion euro odd fund that funds deep tech research. So building this operating system for what ultimately came to be called embedded finance was a really exciting project that we did at Ixaris. While we were doing it, so this project took 2.5 years to build this operating system from the ground up. While we were doing it, the Ixaris business really found product market fit in the travel sector. And, and you see that, right? You see this, the product market fit, and we'll talk a little bit about this perhaps a bit more. Qualitatively, the sense of the business really changes. And at that point, by the time we finished this operating system, we really were not interested in doing all that variety of stuff. We're doing just one thing and doing it at scale. So I came into this sort of quandary. Do I continue to sort of grow this business, which intellectually had become less exciting for me, although it was getting, huge amount of traction. At the same time, this thing we've created, which we are not going to use in the context of this business, what do we do with it? And I think the way that got resolved is that the Ixaris business was then put up for sale, and I spun out the operating system business, which is what became Weavr. Now overlapping all of this was the pandemic, which complicated matters a little bit, not least in the travel sector. So the business went from processing billions of dollars to tens of millions of dollars for a while. Very challenging exit, but we ultimately we did it, and the result was that ultimately the plan came to happen, that I successfully spun out and bootstrapped the Weavr business at the same time. I made a decent chunk of change from the exit of the business, which gave me the financial freedom not to to be more ambitious for the Weavr business.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, great to hear that, kind of use case, and able to incubate as such your one business and then kind of like spin it out, and also during a challenging time of COVID as well. And so where is Weavr now? Like, can you share some data on the company? And you mentioned that obviously initially, it was kind of bootstrapped and incubated through Ixaris. Is it still bootstrapped or is it venture backed now as well?
Yeah, it is very much venture backed. So we're 110 people. We have just gone past 100 signed what we call embedders. These are software businesses typically integrating financial services into their software. Realistically, around half our own production. You will know, and many listeners will know, that the venture world has gone through a really difficult time in the last couple of years. And there are some who have not survived that. Some of them are formerly our customers. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to say, and it's all, in any case, it's always very much a sort of 80-20 rule, right? You onboard 10 programs, and 2 will do incredibly well. 3 or 4 will do okay, and some will just languish, never really come into their own. That is just normal. I think in most of these types of businesses, which are seeking to build new products in new markets, is just how things are. I think what's worth perhaps really celebrating is, we've been very lucky with timing. Embedded finance is only coming at its own now. the investor community, I guess, were excited about the potential of this market a couple of years ago. We were very much, the right thing at the right time. And we've raised a fair amount of capital. We raised about $50 million worth of capital, which we still have the majority of in the business. So we've been quite frugal as how we deploy that capital. I think that's really important, especially in this current environment. And we're slowly building, I think, the operating system for embedded finance. Initially, we were focusing mostly on startups, digital startups who wanted to use embedded finance as a way to increase the value to their customers. What's happened in the last 18 months is that we've shifted the focus on much more established businesses, some of them actually multinationals. If you look at our deal size and in the way we do contracts, you've got a minimum commitment in a contract, and then it's all upside beyond that commitment. But even if you look at that minimum commitment, the deal sizes in the last 12 months have gone up by a factor of 5x. So it's a massive shift from relatively early stage businesses into larger businesses. That means the stress on everyone in the company has obviously gone up enormously. Everyone's had to step up. Our technology has always been scalable thanks to the pedigree we've had. So at least that bit is one thing we can actually rely on very much. But everything else, the customer touch points, the way you sort of roll out programs with really established brands, all of that has had to step up, and is still in the process of stepping up. So yeah, very sort of exciting time in the business, seeing both the challenging environment we're operating in, but also the sort of, if you like, the sort of flowering of demand where we expected it less to be maybe a couple of years ago.
And thanks for sharing that. So you mentioned raising 50 million in quite, I think, a short period of time. It's over a couple of years, if that's correct, right? And what would that be? Is that seed, Series A and B?
We went through a quick succession. So we were raising money during the pandemic. In fact, I really started day one in the business where very much as soon as lockdown happened, which is very much at the time where we were expected to have close the sale on my previous business. Best laid plans that got delayed by about a year, but we bootstrapped Weavr with having to fundraise cold in an environment where you couldn't meet anyone face to face. We did a small raise before we launched our service in November 2020. This November, we celebrated our third year of operations. And in that 3 years, I think we raised three times after that. So the last raise was actually in early 2022 when we raised 40 million Series A.
Okay, very good. And a pretty sizable Series A there. And so let's go into a little bit some of the lessons in building Weavr to date and building the business and getting it to where it is. And so you mentioned previously with Ixaris the point around it finding PMF within the travel industry. What about the instances for Weavr in finding PMF, and maybe some of your learning, sort of like pre-PMF through to finding PMF, and your thoughts around that?
Yes, well, embedded finance is a really wide space, right? So the concept of embedding financial services to software applies for consumer software, for business software, for even different sectors, healthcare, transportation. It's a very, very sort of broad space, which makes it exciting, but also it means that you can actually get lost. You can burn all your capital just scanning and trying so many different things out that you never really kind of realize that you never get the resonance of product market fit. So for me, the biggest anxiety was about how do you balance the kind of, the making of hypothesis, if you like. That's what you're doing when you're really scanning for product market fit early on. And at the same time as focusing and doubling down on areas where you start sort of, you get a sense that there's something here going on, which is ripe, which is where the timing is right, where the value story is right. And I think we are very much in the place where we see that resonance now. And it's only fairly recent in the last, I would say in the last 6 to 9 months, where we've suddenly felt, that there's this qualitative change in the buying behavior. And I think that's what you get with product market fit. In the Entropay business, we were very active in the online gaming industry, and we realized that at one point in time, that wasn't the only industry we targeted. We targeted 5 or 6 different industries, but at some point you got a resonance. You really understood why people were buying, and you had this rational case that if you were in their shoes, you would be making exactly the same decisions. You would be buying from us. And the same thing with Ixaris. When we found the travel sector, we realized that travel agents typically had margins of sub 5%. When they used our products, they could increase their margins by an extra 25%. And when you kind of realize that, you would say you'd have to be crazy not to buy, right? And then when you overlay on that, who else could they buy from? And there were definite segments where we were absolutely the best option. Knowing that is when you get product market fit, knowing who would buy, why they would buy, and why they would buy from you. And I think at Weavr, we're really starting to get this resonance. Where we've landed is that the world of B2B SaaS is actually our sweet spot. Mm-hmm. In B2B SaaS, adding financial services means that for the software business, they can 2x, 3x, even 5x their revenue per customer, right? So they can not only make more money for themselves, but they can also add a ton of value for the customers. So think about an ERP system, an accounting system that also actually pays your suppliers for you and tracks that they have been paid, and maybe gets the early payment discounts, and maybe even offers you working capital so that you can actually meet your outgoings. Now it's no longer paying, the customer is no longer paying for just software that tells them when they need to pay the suppliers, but it's doing a lot of additional things. It's bringing the benefits of automation. It's probably financially optimizing their cash flow as well. Suddenly, the value story that the B2B SaaS company can tap into becomes 3-4 times as big than just selling the software. And so we've realized this. And what we've done is we've identified use cases where there is a lot of value to be created, right? So a big example for us has been in the employee benefits space. There's a lot of platforms for talent management that rely on high engagement with employees. Now, creating a retail-like experience for employees to be able to buy basically their rewards, their benefits, whether that's the traditional ones like healthcare, or life insurance and that sort of thing, or whether it's things like wellness. Creating a retail experience increases the take-up of employee benefits, increasing engagements, increasing the optionality for where you can actually use your employee benefits. And having realized that, we're now finding a lot of employee benefit companies that are moving away from the legacy sort of catalog type offerings into one where they can actually provide a retail experience for the employee. And I could give a similar story to the few other use cases where we are now seeing that sort of resonance that gives us all these sort of indications of product market fit. It becomes easier to sell. It becomes easier to, if you like, differentiate yourself from the alternatives. And ultimately, you also have the proof of value, right? Which is always what customers are always anxious. Are they doing the right thing? And seeing other companies which are similar to them, facing similar problems, actually use this solution, getting the results, gives them that confidence to buy and to invest and to deploy the solutions. So that's kind of how we've been sort of inching our way towards product market fit at Weavr.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of SaaS companies, and in your case, find themselves in these broad markets. And I guess like your use case, it's really just trying to identify that ICP, that specific ICP and customer that really gets this, I don't know, the maximum value. And then how can you kind of double down on these people and serve them as well as you can? So great, a great example there. What about, like getting to 110 people in 3 years, right? I'm sure it has pros and cons. It's got it's pretty rapid scaling, but like for venture-backed companies, perhaps obviously much more normal than for a bootstrap business. How do you think about like building the right team, for the right stage of business, for where you're at and where you're going?
Yeah, look, I am not one of those people who thinks having more people is some sort of path to glory, right? I mean, the reality is if you can deliver success with a smaller team, that's always the best, because smaller team will be more engaged, will know each other better, will have less overhead, communication overheads. But in a world like financial services, where there's a lot of stuff to get right, risk management, compliance, really resilient technology, security, you need a lot of different kind of functional experts to be able to come together and together sort of create the right, the right product and the right stack to have a viable product that can scale. So I think in financial services, it's a little bit different. In a way, you're spending a lot of time just to bring things to the right level and to the right standard that you have a right to play in financial services. We expect, our banks to keep our money safe, for them to protect us from being hacked and our accounts stolen. Those expectations are all the right ones. And so a financial service company has to put a lot of things right before they can actually offer the quality of service that someone would trust them with their, where someone would trust them with their money. And, and at Weavr, this is what we've done, right? In the end, Weavr is a mix of financial service professionals who really understand the risks, the economics of financial services, the kind of, the processes and the responsibilities of financial services, and also are able to bring engineering solutions, technology that can make those processes work better, can make it work, not just better, but can make it work at all in an embedded context, which is insanely hard, right? When you've got effectively a man in the middle on top between the financial service provider and the end customer, you really can't leave things to chance. And you want to do it in a way which is also creating a seamless customer experience. Like, that's where you get to 110 people, right? Before you know it. So I think the sort of challenge we took on at Weavr is to try to imagine what the ideal sort of embedded finance accretion of skills and capabilities would be for B2B SaaS businesses not to have to worry about all the complexity of financial services. And we work backwards from that. We specifically identified skill sets that we need. It's like building a football team. You can't just have a great goalie. You've got to have the scorer, you've got to have the midfield players, and you're curating a lot of that. And yet you also have to make them work as a team. And so, it's is there a magic formula that makes it all work? There isn't. You hire people for the right attitude, skill set, culture, and sometimes it doesn't work, and you have to make the changes you need to make. And finally, I think you have to be guided by what good looks like. I think, and you have to have the courage to not to lower your standards, because it's so insanely hard to hire right and hire consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, okay, there is no magic formula, and things can work out, and also the other way. But how do you view performance frameworks of getting the team that you have in place to hit their goals, or you can drive them towards it, as you're doing now, coming up to end of quarter, over Christmas, but obviously all year round. What are your thoughts on performance frameworks and getting the team to drive the company forward to hit its goals?
Yeah, it's about right sizing the performance frameworks, right? So, and I think with performance frameworks, they have to serve a higher purpose. So if you know what are if you can sort of identify, 3, maybe 5 really important things the company needs to get right. For example, doing risk management at scale to really be successful, and being able to create a seamless customer experience without putting too much of a heavy lift onto the SaaS embedder that you're working with. And then you work backwards. You would say, okay, what's keeping us from doing that? Maybe our technology needs an improvement in this area. Maybe we need to hire for this skill set. Maybe we need to look at the processes that on how we sort of support these embedders. And you kind of break it down. Then you can put in a performance framework. Then to me, having KPIs without being able to answer the question, when you look at a specific KPI figure and say, what does good look like? If you can't answer that question, you might as well not have measurement, because it is just flattery, right? Every time you are saying what my target is to cut the time to go live by 30%, then you are setting in stone, you're setting a sort of line in the sand of what good looks like, and then it's worth measuring how long it takes to go live. Because you're always saying, is it getting close to where I need to be? Or if it's not, why? What have I misunderstood here about the fundamental thing that is going on? Maybe it's not possible, right? And that's, I think, where performance frameworks come in. They're both telling us how we're moving forward, but they're also teaching us a lot about the levers in the business and what is hard and what's easy and what can be easily sort of influenced, what's less directly influenceable. We spend a lot of time actually at Weavr curating what goes into those performance frameworks, and we're doing the same thing. I mean, we're as we wash up 2023, we're thinking about 2024, and some stuff is brought over from 23 into 2024, but there's also new challenges that we're all recognizing that we know we now need to translate into a performance framework. So I think it's really essential for leaders to spend the time to structure a performance framework. It doesn't have to be very kind of complicated, but to do it in a way that's relevant to what good looks like for that business at that particular stage of the business. It's absolutely essential.
Makes sense. We're going to move into the quickish fire round now, Alex. So I'm going to ask or kick off with what one thing has moved the needle the most for you in your career?
Well, failure, actually. With every failure, you confront that things are not what they should be, and they jolt you into soul searching, making the change you need to make.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, I think one big change that came from this advice is that it's not about who's right in an argument, but ultimately it's about doing what is right, or ultimately getting the right answer. And that removes the ego from it and actually changes the way you get into an argument. By trying to seek what's right, rather than trying to prove you are right, it completely changes that dynamic. And someone gave me that advice 25 years ago, and I can still remember it because it really made a change in how I approach conflict, how I approach arguments, and I think it's created a better me.
You mentioned failure has moved the needle the most for you in your career. Is there a specific failure or the biggest failure that you've made with a lesson learned that you could share?
There are plenty. Let me pick one. One was in negotiating a sale for my first business, actually, Entropay, where we were very close, but played hardball and decided not to compromise, and the sale fell through, and we never got to sell that business. So, so I think that was a big, massive fail. I think on standing hard on things that actually should really be where you should really try to find a compromise.
And just out of curiosity, were you negotiating that yourselves, or did you have like a broker working with you on that one?
No, we actually had an investment banker who was really recommending we try to find a space for agreement. I think we had a range of shareholders from the very bullish to the more sort of, accommodating. I don't diminish my responsibility for holding out on that one, though. It was a fail.
Yeah. What is the hardest thing about being a CEO?
Well, by definition, when you're a CEO, ultimately you've really got to make things happen now, but you also can't lose sight of the future. So that, to me, that sort of, do you look far and do you create things now which will make your business better in 12 months' time? or do you get in the weeds right now and solve the problem that the business needs to solve? Getting that balance right, I think, is really, really hard. And I find myself constantly having to look at both, look at the balance. Am I ignoring all the fires that are burning right now because I've got this great shiny thing which I'm working towards that's going to be really impactful for the business in 12 months, maybe, opening offices in new markets, launching a new product? Or do I spend all of my time putting out fires, but then we don't really know where we're going, and we're not really investing in changing the trajectory of the business? That is really hard to do, because both are very engaging things to spend your time on, right? And they require so many different skills. So yeah, I find that quite hard to balance.
What's your favorite book on business and why?
Well, right now, I am rereading, because I read it the first time through very quickly, Scaling People, which is written by Claire Hughes Johnson, who really did this at Google and then more recently at Stripe. And the book, in a way, it's quite practical. It's got forms of how you organize things, whether it's hiring or setting performance sort of frameworks. But it's just so relevant to Weavr right now. We're very much in execution mode right now. We're feeling very good around the space that we've identified for ourselves, and we're getting really good traction. So now it's all around getting that machine to just scale and actually perform better as we make our way towards Series B.
Awesome. I haven't read that book. One for the list. We've had Claire speak at SaaStock in the past, and so curious to read that one myself. And so, Alex, we come to the end of the podcast. If people want to sort of reach out to you, where can they find you, and where can they learn more about Weavr?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to connect with me. Search for Alex Mifsud, Weavr.io. I'll pop out right there. Just reach out. And look at our website. Get in touch. We have events in-person events in various places mostly around Europe, and webinars and all the rest of it. Connect with us. We'd love to engage with the SaaS community, especially.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being a great guest on the show. Good luck with finishing up the rest of 2023, and here's to an exciting 2024. So thanks so much, Alex Mifsud, CEO of Weavr.
Thanks for having me, Alex. All the best for you.